after getting to know with the tools of the View tab and also the panel of Create, that we use them for creating different kind of views, we're gonna continue the dimensions in Annotate tab in Details. Firstly, what are the details? I want to open the PowerPoint slides and then we're going to check out detailing views. The first point that you should know is that the tools in detailing tab are provided in 2D and they are not involved in schedule and quantities, and they are only visible in the current view. And right now I want you to understand the concept of detail. Here there is a keyword for the details and their tools, that the detailing tools fill the gap or they bridge the gap between the model and the realities of your model or project. Because if you want to work as a professional BIM modeler and be an expert, you should put the LODs into consideration. So you have to work according to the LODs. And in some of the times there are some elements that got some small details like a screw or a knot for a casework, or I'm talking about a small piece or some connections that do not exist at the low level LODs, but you have to represent some connections in the details, so then you can reference those details to the connections that are going to be added in the high level LODs. For instance, we do not model weld in Revit, so we use some details by using these detailing tools in order to use them as a symbol of weld. However, you can choose and decide to model a weld and a screw or other elements to make the representation more realistic. But it is not essential to be modeled. There is no necessity. They are mostly modeled in Advanced Steel, Tekla, and other softwares. But note that the detailing tools are bridging the gap between the model and the reality. And as you are concerned, Autodesk Revit totally supports the BIM process or the building information modeling process and supports the BIM standards. So while you are working on a project in Revit, in fact, you are providing a digital sample of the project that is going to be constructed in the real world. So it is necessary to be able to use the detailing tools instead of some 3D models, or using the 2D objects instead of the 3D objects, and show them how they are going to be executed. In fact, the detailing tools are considered as some vital tools for all of the projects. That in the continuation, I will give you more information. In general, we got two types of detail views in Revit. The first group, detail view. The second one, drafting view. That we talked about them in the previous sessions, as you can see on this slide. Section views, callout views, that they can be as detail views. And also the drafting views. Watch this. That, as I told you before, this view is not dependent to the model, and there is no interrelation between the model and the view. So if we make whatever changes upon the model, they won't be applied on that drafting view. But the detail views, like the callouts, like the section views or the elevation views, are totally dependent to the model. So if you make some changes upon the model, they will be applied on the views as well. So the two groups of views are detail views and drafting views. Drafting views are provided in 2D without no dependency to the model, while detail views are dependent. And here it is important to know when to decide to use the detail views, or when should we use the detailing tools, as you can see, which are enlisted here. Firstly, when we want to represent an exact information or data in a way that the 3D version of the model is not completed yet. So we use the detailing views in order to provide the shop plans or the shopping plans for executive affairs. Therefore, we can use the detailing tools in some of the stages of the project. Secondly, we use detailing views for representing the parts and the elements which are not modeled in Revit. As I mentioned before, we use it for representing more precise details, and if we haven't modeled, some parts of the project, we can use the detailing tools in order to create 2D elements instead of the 3D ones. And for the third reason, I should say that we can create a detail and then we can reference it to the other views, like a drafting view. If you remember, we talked about the callouts, the callout views in the previous section, and we talked about referencing details to the views and drafting. Sometimes it is required to refer a detail to different parts of a model. Then we can use detailing tools for referring these details, and there are some other times that there are some elements which are covered by other elements that are not visible for us, or there are some elements which are covered by some details, 2D details, and they are not visible for us. So in order to display these hidden items, we can use the detail lines or these detailings in order to specify those parts. For instance, we use a line for specifying the hidden items or elements, especially when they are not modeled yet. And there are some other times that you model a detail or an element in high details, that if we wanted to add more details and adding more detailing to a section view or callout views, we can use detailing tools. So these are the occasions that we can use detailing tools in. What about the detailing tools? Firstly, we got detail line. That by using detail line, we can draw some lines into the project, to the view, or into the details. And the next one is filled region. Filled region is similar with the pattern, that we use it for filling some parts with some patterns. And the next one is mask region, is which we're using for hiding or masking some regions. The next one is detail component or component, that we use it in order to use some 2D components as you are concerned or you're already familiar with the 3D components like tables, chairs, plumbing fixtures, lighting fixtures, and so on. So we can use detail components for modeling the bolts, anchors, screws, and repeat detail item. We use this for repeating a detail component or component along a way or a line. For example, like blocks, bricks, ceramics, stones, and legend component that we talked about it in the previous section. The next one is revision cloud, that by using this tool we can create some clouds and adding some revision clouds and some descriptions inside the revision cloud. And detail group, sometimes we can combine the detailing tools like detail line, filled region, detail component, and others. For example, here we got a mixture of line, detail component, text, and we can select them, convert them to groups, and then use them in other parts of the project. The next one, we got insulation, which is used for displaying the pattern or the symbol of insulation. And the next one is cut profile, which is irrelevant to details, but in my account I should talk about it here at this session, that we use it for editing a 3D model like walls, doors, and others as a 2D element. But note that when you use the detailing tools, they are only visible in the current view. They are only effective at the current view, they are only visible at the current view, and they got no influence on other views, and it is only relevant to the current view. And the another point is that the tools of detail component cannot be scheduled by default, since they are totally provided in two-dimensional and they are only used for presenting more detailings. So they are not 3D to be scheduled. So this was the concept of detailing tools in Autodesk Revit. Right now, we're gonna start making some examples from each one.